Have you ever wondered about the mysteries lying just beyond the veil of our familiar world, hidden from the eyes of most? What if I told you about an ancient book filled with astonishing accounts of fallen angels, giant beings, and prophecies that could fundamentally change your understanding of history? In this captivating exploration, we'll journey together through the pages of the enigmatic Book of Enoch, striving to unravel its age-old secrets and grasp its true significance. Before we delve deeper, be sure to support this dive into history and mythology by liking this video and subscribing to our channel so you won't miss our next incredible story. The name Enoch resonates through history as a potent symbol of the extraordinary interaction between the heavenly and earthly realms. Unlike many other figures merely mentioned fleetingly in sacred texts, Enoch's story stands out for its exceptional and mysterious fate. I've always been fascinated by why he, specifically, didn't suffer the common human fate of death, but was instead taken up by God. This event alone raises countless questions and makes one ponder. Who was this man whose life was so radically different from his contemporaries, and what was the true reason for his uniqueness? Enoch appears before us as an embodiment of supreme righteousness and unwavering devotion. According to ancient traditions, he didn't just exist among people, fulfilling earthly duties. He possessed the unique gift of direct communication with the Creator himself. His earthly path was woven with profound visions and divine revelations, which he is believed to have shared with the world, possibly exerting significant influence on the spiritual life of his time. This aspect of his biography makes Enoch not just an important historical figure, but, in my opinion, a pivotal one, serving as a crucial link between the visible material world and the unseen spiritual realms. It's precisely his unique experience of contact with higher powers that gives anyone seeking spiritual truths ample reason to reflect on the hidden knowledge that might have been granted to him. Interestingly, it's in light of his direct communion with the heavens that serious speculation arises. Could Enoch have been more than just a prophet, perhaps a witness to the most fundamental laws of creation itself? In his transcendent visions, he is thought to have beheld the complex celestial hierarchy and grasped the principles governing the operation and development of all existence. There's a belief that Enoch was the very first human who dared to record these astonishing revelations, thereby granting humanity access to mysteries whose significance extends far beyond everyday perception and mundane concerns. It seems to me this was a truly unprecedented step, passing down to posterity keys to understanding the profound foundations of existence hidden from the uninitiated. Although the Book of Enoch was not included in the official biblical canon and is considered apocryphal, it contains a striking number of themes and ideas that find clear echoes in other accepted sacred scriptures. This remarkable overlap only underscores its deep, albeit unofficial, connection to the broader spiritual tradition of humankind. The text touches upon timeless themes: disobedience to the divine will, the nature of sin, and the inevitability of just judgment, lessons that perhaps make Enoch's experience and the revelations he conveyed so important and instructive. In this context, it seems to me, questions naturally arise not only about the profound truths that might be hidden within its pages, but also about how humanity as a whole would react if this knowledge were widely disseminated. Enoch, according to descriptions, was more than just a righteous man. He was, one might say, a kind of test case, whose life set a precedent for the possibility of close interaction between God and humankind. The very idea of his status as an intermediary between the heavenly and the earthly opens up new, fascinating dimensions in understanding the process of divine revelation. There's reason to believe that the knowledge Enoch received could have radically altered conventional understandings of both the spiritual and material worlds had it become accessible to a wider audience over time. I find it tragic that this knowledge was not only ignored, but actively rejected by the official church at a certain point in history, which compels me to reflect deeply on the true reasons behind this decision. The enigma surrounding Enoch remains unsolved to this day. Not only his mysterious status, but also his unique mission demand much deeper and more comprehensive study. The incredible path he walked, the ability to walk with God and receive revelations potentially capable of changing not just his own destiny, but the fate of all humanity, makes him a figure truly worthy of repeated investigation and contemplation. Every word attributed to him, every revelation recorded in the Book of Enoch, is filled with astonishing power and foreshadowing that, it seems to me, point to something far greater than we are usually shown. Perhaps the connection between our world and the heavens is much closer than we think, and this knowledge might well prove key to ultimately understanding humanity's purpose and destiny. The Book of Enoch is not just another ancient manuscript. It's a truly mysterious chronicle that lifts the veil on the deep, sometimes frightening aspects of the spiritual world. Within its pages lie encoded astonishing accounts of how celestial beings, known as the Watchers, descended to Earth with the intention of interacting with humanity. However, their interaction quickly went beyond its prescribed boundaries, and they began teaching humans secrets that could be considered forbidden and dangerous. This fateful interference led to the emergence of the Nephilim, gigantic, mighty offspring of fallen angels, whose existence became a terrifying reality resulting from their sinful and unnatural union with human women. These events were not mere isolated episodes in early history, but foundational factors that exerted a colossal and long-lasting influence on the entire subsequent fate of humanity. Some knowledge conveyed in the Book of Enoch is described as too dangerous and complex to be safely included in canonical scriptures. One such secret involves teaching humans magic, astrology, and various pernicious arts. This knowledge opens doors to powers and possibilities capable of both granting humans unprecedented freedom and might, and utterly ruining and destroying them. A person ensnared by this forbidden knowledge risks irrevocably losing their connection to the divine source and the higher plan, which, as I see it, was presented as a stark example and a warning, rooted in deep antiquity, against the misuse of forces beyond human control. The significance of the Book of Enoch extends far beyond simple mythology or ancient legends. It delves into the most central and eternal questions of human existence, the nature of good and evil, free will and choice, and the inevitable consequences that form an integral part of the overall divine plan. The Watchers, whose role was to guard and oversee the world, instead chose to actively interfere in human affairs, and this very interference marked the beginning of their own fall and the end of their celestial role. The book provides us with a complex narrative of how even beings created perfect could fall under the destructive influence of their own passions and desires, serving as an important lesson for us as well. Nevertheless, Despite the profundity of the revelations it contains, the Book of Enoch was largely excluded from most religious libraries and collections, potentially due to pressure from those seeking to maintain the established status quo in official religious discourse. It seems noteworthy to me that, over time, such knowledge came to be seen as threatening and dangerous, and various, sometimes dark, sects and secret societies became objects of interest as potential keepers of these heretical or hidden truths. While religious authorities work to unify doctrines and practices, the Book of Enoch not only continues to nourish diverse religious and esoteric traditions, but also confronts us with fundamental questions about what we truly know about our genuine spiritual heritage. The secrets and revelations contained within it resist simple scientific analysis. They demand deep reflection, spiritual interpretation, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious. This is precisely what makes them so intriguing and important for philosophers, theologians, and anyone seeking answers to life's eternal questions. Delving into these texts encourages us to embark on a path where knowledge and the responsible use of that knowledge become paramount. The intermingling worlds, visible and invisible, divine and earthly, good and evil, constantly raise existential questions about our place in the cosmos and the extent of our influence over our own destinies and the fate of all humanity. By deepening our understanding of morality and ethics, the Book of Enoch places them within the context of the divine plan and cosmic responsibility. The Book of Enoch describes in vivid detail a specific group of angels, known as the Watchers or Grigori, who decided to descend to Earth and interact with humans, teaching them many different kinds of forbidden knowledge and arts. These celestial beings, originally endowed with divine purpose and appointed to oversee, strayed from their designated role prescribed by the Most High. Their connection with humanity resulted in catastrophic and destructive consequences. According to Enoch's narrative, the Watchers, having compromised their high divine status due to their desires, not only taught humans the secrets of magic, astrology, metallurgy, and other skills, but also brought about the emergence of gigantic creatures, the Nephilim, born from their union with human women. This unnatural interference in the human world sowed seeds of chaos, spawned violence and destruction, leaving behind traces that, it seems to me, have resonated throughout all subsequent human history. According to tradition, the Watchers, driven by irresistible temptation and lust for the earthly, violated God's sacred commandment regarding the inviolable boundaries between the heavenly and the terrestrial. They not only entered into forbidden relations with the daughters of men, but also generously shared knowledge with humans that, according to the divine plan, was not meant for mere mortals. The wisdom they imparted wasn't merely a tool for technological or cultural progress. It quickly became a source of sin, pride, and pervasive ignorance, leading people astray from the true path. The fallen angels, by teaching humans this dangerous knowledge, essentially disrupted the ordered divine world, leading humanity into an abyss of spiritual emptiness, moral depravity, and cruelty previously unknown to them. As a direct consequence of this union and the imparted forbidden knowledge, the Nephilim arose. These were not just giants of immense stature, but beings created from a mixture of celestial and terrestrial origins, making them an anomaly. These creatures possessed monstrous strength and majesty, capable of inspiring awe, but also incredible cruelty and a propensity for violence, as ancient texts indicate. The Nephilim quickly became the embodiment of unrighteousness and vice, and their destructive behavior only exacerbated the existing sin in the world. escalating it to such a degree that it provoked God's wrath. It was precisely their appearance and actions that became one of the primary reasons compelling God to send judgment upon the earth in the form of the Great Flood to eradicate the evil stemming from this sinful union. The Book of Enoch even names some of these rebellious angels and their leaders, notably Azazel, who is believed to have led the rebellion against heavenly authority and become one of the main culprits of the ensuing corruption. Interestingly, it's said that righteous figures approached Enoch, asking him to act as their representative, an intercessor before heaven. Thus, the Watchers represent not merely those who violated divine commandments and fell from grace, but also those who became the direct cause of immense calamity for all humankind. This makes their figures not just examples of evil influence, but also mirrors reflecting how far the spirit of sin, apostasy, and pride can go if yielded to. Despite their fall and the temptation that led them to indulge their desires, every secret imparted by the Watchers came at a terrible price. With each new piece of knowledge given to humans came destruction, oppressing humanity and leading it towards ruin. The fact that their interference did not go unpunished and that it led to the creation of giants who, in turn, sowed even greater terror, depravity, and evil among people is a central theme. The Book of Enoch frames this story as a cautionary tale, one that cannot be dismissed merely as myth. It is a stark reminder of how quickly one can cross the line separating virtue from vice, and how the pursuit of knowledge without responsibility can lead to the horrors vividly represented by the Nephilim. In this context, the actions of the Watchers and their fall serve as an eternal lesson, illustrating the danger of succumbing to temptations like those once presented to them. Enoch, according to biblical texts, was an outstanding patriarch whose life is shrouded in an aura of mystery and holiness. He indeed was not one who experienced natural death. Instead, defying convention, he was granted a unique destiny. He was taken by God and ascended to the heavens. This mystical transition not only places him among the greatest prophets and divine messengers, but also opens the door to profound questions about his true mission, the nature of his relationship with the Creator, and the crucial warning he might have left behind. Considering Enoch's unique fate, one cannot help but wonder what his extraordinarily strong and close bond with God truly signified. The scriptures say that Enoch walked with God, and it seems to me these words likely played a pivotal role in his selection as a recipient of revelations and celestial secrets. It's fascinating how this special connection could have served as a powerful conduit for divine messages which, in turn, could have profoundly influenced not only Enoch himself, but the spiritual future of all humanity. Each revelation recorded by him or attributed to him contains vital lessons, teachings, and, significantly, dire warnings for future generations. It should be emphasized that Enoch didn't just leave behind simple records of fleeting visions. His works, particularly the Book of Enoch, become a genuine window into forgotten and carefully concealed realities that modern generations, lacking such direct contact with the divine, could hardly grasp without his unique intervention. The details about a world inhabited by celestial forces, entities, and their complex hierarchy are saturated with knowledge that many traditional systems would deem forbidden or too dangerous for the uninitiated. How could one figure, set apart from the seemingly monotonous earthly lives of other patriarchs, introduce such stunning diversity into the stream of spiritual revelations? The contents of the Book of Enoch touch not only upon his personal transcendent experiences, but also upon universally accepted eternal themes like the just judgment of all creation, the existence and actions of tempting spirits and fallen angels, and the catastrophic event of the Great Flood. All these images and narratives become symbols not just for studying the obscurities of human history, but more importantly, mirrors for humanity itself, prompting self-analysis. I've always been curious. How could Enoch understand these grim future prospects so deeply and predict the coming judgment when he himself, according to all descriptions, was a man of light and righteousness who walked with God? Furthermore, studying Enoch's destiny necessitates understanding his singular, grand purpose to be a bridge connecting heaven and earth. He became the one who brought visions and knowledge capable of radically changing humanity's understanding of divine justice, the mechanisms of punishment, and the true nature of sin. In the world he witnessed, full of corruption and unrighteousness, something more than mere preaching was required. Someone was needed to remind humanity of the necessary boundaries set by the Creator and the consequences of violating them. Undoubtedly, Enoch's uniqueness lies in his role as a central figure in some form of negotiation or interaction between heaven and earth. His fate compels deep reflection on the true cost of revelation and how a person might be prepared for such a complex and responsible mission. A mission to warn future humanity about the catastrophic consequences of thoughtless actions and deviation from the divine will. Since each of his lessons and revelations provokes a deeper awareness of the complexity of human nature, its propensity for sin, and the inevitability of divine intervention. When sin crosses all boundaries, Enoch essentially lifted the veil of time, temporarily opening new horizons of understanding that still hold profound truths about the world's destiny. The Book of Enoch devotes considerable attention to the very forbidden knowledge allegedly passed down by fallen angels to humanity. I think it's crucial to understand that this knowledge wasn't limited to simple technical or scientific discoveries accessible to the ordinary mind. It contained profound secrets of creation, capable of altering the very essence of human existence and its place in the cosmos. By teaching humans magic, astrology, metallurgy, and other arts, the angels known as the Watchers open doors to powerful forces that often prove to be unknown, unpredictable, and utterly uncontrollable by humans. Thus, these teachings carried both immense potential for development and, inevitably, destructive consequences, as later became clear. The fallen angels, having descended to earth, displayed what seems to me an unhealthy interest in the human experience, and, it's believed, sought to deepen human knowledge beyond permissible limits. The Book of Enoch details how the angels taught humans the art of warfare, encompassing not just tactics and techniques, but also profound moral dilemmas that questioned the very nature of conflict and violence. These teachings incited humanity towards conflict, aggression, and violence, enabling the manipulation of natural forces and influence over others. Magical practices, used improperly or with malicious intent, could lead to catastrophic events, destroying the harmony of the world. I've always wondered, did this forbidden knowledge arise from a genuine desire to accelerate humanity's cultural and technological advancements? Or was it merely a hidden necessity for survival in conditions where natural forces and human weaknesses merged? Whatever the case, these teachings placed a heavy burden of responsibility on humanity for the knowledge used, rightly or wrongly. It seems to me this lesson vividly reflects how easily ambition and the lust for power can lead to a fall, not just of an individual, but of all humankind. Humanity, upon receiving such great yet perilous gifts, proved utterly unprepared for their wise and responsible use, and the catastrophic consequences were not long in coming, becoming tangible for all. As the Book of Enoch narrates, from these dangerous discoveries and the unnatural union emerged the Nephilim, giants born from the mingling of fallen angels and human women. These beings became living symbols of all the calamities that befell the earth. Their aggression, moral corruption, and propensity for violence quickly manifested in human society, which, under their influence, grew increasingly distant from divine will and righteousness. As the inhabitants of earth began to widely neglect the righteousness and virtue that once defined their existence, a keen interest in the illicit knowledge gained from the Watchers, coupled with growing moral degradation, plunged the world into complete chaos and lawlessness. Every aspect of these forbidden teachings, it seems to me, was designed to maintain the illusion of power and might for those who mastered them. Knowledge that should have led to progress and growth instead became a tool for domination over others, fueling hatred, conflict, and war. Humanity, having received such a vast yet uncontrollable legacy, found itself unable to cope with the consequences of the unbridled lust for power that had gripped it. This became one of the primary reasons why divine forces decided to punish the rebellious angels and cleanse the earth of the corruption caused by this irresponsible and dangerous interference. Thus, this forbidden knowledge became the tempting veil behind which lay both promises of great power and dark, destructive consequences that could, and still can, influence our world. Reading the Book of Enoch, we find a rich and multifaceted text that poses eternal questions about how wisdom and knowledge can be used for the benefit of all existence, or serve as the beginning of a fall and catastrophe, leaving us at a crossroads where a vital and relevant question stands: how will we, as humanity, use the knowledge and powers we possess today? The Nephilim, those mighty beings known as the giants of the earth, represent one of the most intriguing and frightening elements in the narrative, especially within the Book of Enoch. These colossal creatures, according to the text, emerged from the sinful and unnatural union of fallen angels, called the Watchers and the daughters of men. Unlike other, briefer mentions of angels and humans in sacred scriptures, the Book of Enoch focuses intently on the destructive and far-reaching consequences of this interaction, vividly illustrating how the interference of celestial beings led to unprecedented chaos and violence on earth. According to Enoch, the Nephilim were not merely beings of immense size. They were the living embodiment of the destructive forces unleashed by the knowledge that caused their emergence and the subsequent fall of the world. These creatures possessed superhuman strength and physical grandeur, allowing them to easily dominate and sow fear among ordinary people. Moreover, the book delves into the grim details of their role in teaching humans forbidden knowledge, from the secrets of magic and astrology to complex metalworking and deadly warfare. This transfer of knowledge had a truly devastating impact on humanity, provoking widespread moral decay, lawlessness, and violence. In the canonical Bible, the Nephilim are mentioned only fleetingly in a few verses, but it is the Book of Enoch that provides additional, shocking details about how their corrupting influence spread across the earth. The fallen angels didn't just form unions with humans. They introduced elements into human life that could have permanently altered the course of history had they not been stopped. The concept that they brought knowledge hidden from the human mind and not intended for it powerfully underscores the idea that knowledge itself is not an unconditional good. It must be accompanied by responsibility, humility before the divine will, and an understanding of one's place in the cosmos. Incredibly, even after the devastating flood sent by God as punishment to cleanse the earth of defilement and the Nephilim, echoes of their existence continue to resonate in myths and legends across diverse cultures worldwide. For example, in Greek mythology, distorted versions of these ancient tales about the Nephilim take the form of the Titans, mighty beings who rebelled against the divine order and were punished for it. And in Sumerian tradition, which describes the Anunnaki, similar motifs can be found. Divine or semi-divine beings who came from the heavens and taught humanity wisdom and arts. This comparison inevitably raises the question, could these ancient myths represent fragmented pieces of a broader cosmic reality related to that very interference of celestial beings in earthly affairs? The Book of Enoch paints a chilling yet compelling picture of the consequences of the sinful union, where the Nephilim not only destroy humanity's moral compass, but also become living signs of a curse upon the earth. Their offspring, it seems to me, can be perceived as something more than just a physical manifestation of sin awaiting Judgment Day. They become a potent symbol of power that can be used for both good and evil, and the choice that confronts every soul. Beings possessing such immense power as the Nephilim ultimately point to an important and timeless lesson. Knowledge and power, unchecked by divine laws and used without due responsibility, can lead to catastrophic and irreversible consequences. Thus, the Nephilim embody not only physical strength, but also the spiritual threat posed by evil unleashed upon the world when celestial beings decided to betray their duties. Their story left an indelible mark on human history, and the Book of Enoch serves as a grim reminder that responsibility follows every action, both in heaven and on earth. The punishment of the fallen angels, the retribution sent by God, was, according to the Book of Enoch, truly severe and final. According to this ancient text, the rebellious beings were cast into an abyss and bound in eternal chains until Judgment Day, awaiting their final sentence. As for their terrifying offspring, the Nephilim, the decision was made to eliminate them through a powerful, worldwide flood. This divine judgment was not merely an act of vengeance, but also an attempt to cleanse the earth of the unimaginable sin and corruption brought into the world by the fallen angels and their progeny. According to Enoch's shocking account, the fallen angels, once majestic, radiant, and powerful beings, ceased to fulfill their high divine mission when their hearts were overshadowed by passion and desire for the daughters of men. This direct and audacious violation of God's commandments could not remain unnoticed or unpunished. The Watchers, as they were called, were held fully accountable for their actions, and their progeny, the Nephilim, became the living and horrifying embodiment of this sin. Their enormous size, unnatural nature, and cruelty symbolized the chaos these angels brought to earth through their interference. Each of these rebellious angels was associated with a specific area of forbidden knowledge which they generously shared with humanity, from mysterious alchemy and magic to complex astrology and metallurgy. But, as is often the case with power devoid of wisdom, all these gifts turned against humans themselves. allowing them to plunge into the darkest depths of moral degradation and lawlessness. As the Nephilim sowed chaos and violence, human society rapidly became corrupted and strayed from divine principles, reaching a high degree of vice and spiritual emptiness that ultimately provoked the righteous wrath of divine judgment. The divine punishment depicted in the Book of Enoch symbolized not just vengeance, but the profound essence of justice, the restoration of disrupted order. Within this harsh judgment lay the potential for redemption and purification, intended to restore lost harmony. The punishment of the fallen angels and their descendants became a harbinger of larger changes, including the divine restoration and renewal of the world. Humanity, weary of suffering and chaos, could hope for salvation and a new era, but only if it was willing to cleanse itself of sin and return to the path of righteousness. Stories of fallen angels are familiar from various traditions, but only the Book of Enoch highlights their greatness before the fall and the horror of their downfall, showing that even the highest and seemingly most perfect beings can defy God's commandments and fall victim to their own desires and pride. The accounts of their confinement in the abyss are not just metaphors, but grim warnings for everyone. Being bound in chains until Judgment Day serves as a somber reminder that everyone will answer for their actions and choices, whatever lies beyond this life, and that divine justice knows no mercy or partiality. How does this relate to earthly destiny? When the flood became the instrument of divine cleansing, it not only destroyed the Nephilim, but also revealed to the world a clear boundary between the divine and the mundane, between righteousness and unrighteousness. The cruel and crazed Nephilim, in their immorality, taught humans lawlessness and apostasy from the divine order, and this became one of the main reasons for the destruction of that sin-ridden humanity. The flood was the culmination of divine wrath, intended not only to deal with what had been, but also to mark a new, clean page in the world's history. These events are perhaps not just one of many biblical legends, but a weighty reminder of the catastrophic consequences human interference in the divine plan can have, especially when motivated by pride and the thirst for forbidden knowledge. What followed the fallen angels was not merely punishment. It was an explicit act of divine judgment, emphasizing the importance of purity, order, and submission to the higher will. And so, the punishment of the fallen angels became not only retribution for their sins, but also an awakening for future generations, urging them to seek truth, strive for righteousness, and avoid becoming victims of their own unrestrained desires. Enoch's influence on the modern era is felt on many, sometimes subtle, levels. The ancient teachings contained in the Book of Enoch continue to exert a noticeable impact on philosophical reflection, stimulate ethical discussions, and even inspire scientific inquiry. The intriguing nature of this text compels us to constantly reevaluate modern concepts of good and evil, human responsibility, and the limits of knowledge. I've always found it interesting how Enoch's teachings, many of which seem so unusual or even forbidden within traditional religious contexts, still retain their relevance in our age of rapid technological advancement and modernization. The Book of Enoch offers us a deep, sometimes uncomfortable, look at the dynamics of human nature and its complex interaction with higher forces. It describes timeless conflicts between fallen angels and the righteous, which, it seems to me, find surprising parallels in contemporary societal issues and the internal human struggle between moral principles and indifference to ethics. Through this book, we can analyze how ancient myths and symbols continue to influence modern consciousness, shaping our perception of the world. For example, conflicts arising from the unrestrained pursuit of forbidden or dangerous knowledge are at the very center of contemporary debates about the limits of science and ethics. Questions concerning genetic editing, the development of artificial intelligence, and other groundbreaking technologies inevitably remind us of the lessons learned, or not learned, from the ancient story of the Watchers and their mistakes. It's worth noting that in striving to expand its knowledge and capabilities, humanity might inadvertently cross that very permissible boundary, potentially leading to consequences quite similar to those vividly described in the Book of Enoch. Furthermore, Enoch's teachings powerfully underscore the fundamental importance of moral responsibility. Each of us, in one way or another, plays a role in the vast tapestry of human experience, and according to the book, an individual's actions inevitably reflect on the overall spiritual and moral state of the world. This principle retains its absolute relevance today. We constantly see how our collective and individual decisions and actions shape society, leading to shifts in moral standards and the accumulation of wisdom or ignorance on a global scale. In this regard, the Book of Enoch becomes a call for deep self-reflection and an honest analysis of our own actions and their potential consequences. Enoch's teachings also touch upon the crucial concept of spiritual justice, which resonates deeply with modern quests for meaning and balance. His teachings on absolute truth and the inevitable consequences of sinful actions remind us of the existence of higher principles and laws that can and should still serve as reliable guides for human conduct. This concept surprisingly aligns with contemporary ethical and legal systems, which, at their core, also strive to establish clear rules and boundaries to maintain justice and order in society. Scientific researchers, as I see it, can also draw inspiration from the Book of Enoch, albeit not literally. It can serve as a starting point for rethinking the interconnections between science and spirituality, between the known and the unknown. Questions about where the boundaries of our current knowledge end and where the unknown begins become increasingly relevant in light of the astonishing discoveries in quantum physics, cosmology, and consciousness that currently challenge our imagination. Thus, the Book of Enoch can be perceived as a call for sincere exploration and the expansion of human understanding, but with wisdom and responsibility. Enoch's complex and multifaceted legacy highlights that the study of his texts should not be confined merely to historical or theological contexts. They become important metaphors and practical teachings for contemporary individuals seeking to consciously and responsibly use their choices to shape their inner world and the surrounding society. Within Enoch's teachings, it seems to me, lies the potential to achieve integrity between scientific progress and moral responsibility, offering keys to harmony between ancient wisdom and modern challenges. Hence arises the important task for humanity to use these discoveries and lessons from the past to build a more sustainable, ethically grounded, and spiritually fulfilling future. Among the most striking and profound elements of the Book of Enoch are its prophecies, which evoke awe in readers and pose fundamental questions about our collective destiny and the very nature of divine judgment. These prophecies reveal a picture of the future where humanity inevitably faces the full consequences of its actions, and every soul undergoes strict and impartial judgment. Enoch, observing the inflexibility of divine forces and justice, describes the advent of an era of ultimate justice, where evil will finally be punished in full measure, and all the righteous will be rewarded for their faith, endurance, and loyalty. Remarkably, many predictions contained in the Book of Enoch find astonishing parallels not only in the Old Testament, but also in New Testament texts, which I believe underscores the commonality of apocalyptic motifs across different traditions. Enoch foresees the future purification of the world from all defilement and the dawning of a new age, a new earth, free from evil. Describing the catastrophic events that must precede this renewal, he also foretells signs that will indicate the imminent end of the existing world order. Importantly, these visions are not limited to predictions of natural cataclysms. Enoch also delves deeply into the internal state of humanity, warning of the moral decline that will precede the final judgment. He describes how people will massively turn away from love, mercy, and justice, inevitably leading to an even greater prevalence of evil, hatred, and violence on earth. This prophecy sounds strikingly relevant in our modern world, where violence, hatred, and indifference to one's neighbor seem to be growing like never before. This isn't just an ancient story or a warning from the past. It's a reminder that all our words, thoughts, and actions are recorded in some cosmic ledger, and one day, each of us will confront what we have created with our own hands in this life. If the slightest missteps or deviations on the path to downfall are not corrected and redeemed, the next inevitable step will be the judgment Enoch so sternly warns about. He describes how angels, executors of the divine will perform their duty to separate the persecuted righteous from the wicked and immoral, who will face strict and just judgment. It's also noteworthy that in the Book of Enoch, angels are key figures in this process, who, as I see it, will bring humanity to a full realization of their moral choices and consequences. They will oversee every action, assisting God in carrying out his grand plan of justice. This aspect clearly demonstrates that celestial beings, even after separation from the human world, continue to actively influence events on earth. Their role as conduits of divine will makes them important and indispensable participants in the final scene of human history. Thus, Enoch's prophecies not only sternly warn us about the consequences of boundless knowledge, pride, and loss of virtue, but also open our eyes to the unseen forces involved in navigating this complex world. They offer both a grim foresight and simultaneously a ray of hope, for not all is lost. The world awaits Judgment Day, and we, as humanity, still have the opportunity to change our destiny if we turn to truth, justice, and higher principles. These revelations become a personal challenge to each of us, raising the crucial question of how we should live in anticipation of an unpredictable future, aware of the responsibility for our every step. Controversies surrounding the Book of Enoch have created a vast and multifaceted field of discussion among scholars, theologians, and historians concerned with questions of its authenticity and status as a sacred text. It seems to me the reasons why it was excluded from the biblical canon remain a subject of heated debate and profound bewilderment. Many researchers question not only how and by whom the decision for its exclusion was made, but also which specific historical, political, or theological factors influenced such a radical step. One key reason often cited is the controversial content of the Book of Enoch, which in many aspects differs from the more traditional biblical narrative. By presenting events and characters that, according to some, challenge established religious dogmas and perceptions, the book inevitably provoked resistance. The content of the Book of Enoch is filled with unique mystical revelations and detailed descriptions not only of the complex celestial hierarchy, but also of the personalities of fallen angels, their close interaction with humanity, and the brutal, catastrophic consequences of these actions. Some scholars believe that such teachings, had they been accepted as canonical, could have raised serious questions about the very nature of God and the mechanisms of divine judgment over the righteous and sinners, which was perceived as a potential challenge to the traditional understanding of Jewish and Christian faith and their theological foundations. Furthermore, in the history of early Christianity and late Judaism, numerous movements and currents viewed the Book of Enoch as a sacred text and even attempted to include it in their own canon. For example, the influential Essene group, active in the 1st century CE, undoubtedly revered this book deeply and widely used its content to explain their views on spirituality, revelation, and eschatology. This clearly highlights that the Book of Enoch had significant support among certain religious groups who questioned the generally accepted view of its inappropriateness or apocryphal nature. On the other hand, it becomes clear to me that religious authorities in the early centuries, striving to unify doctrine and create a single centralized canon, possibly felt a strong need to exclude texts that could be seen as a threat to their authority and control over the flock. In the modern era, texts like the Book of Enoch are often questioned and confused with myths, legends, or esoteric teachings. However, many contain ideas and concepts that remain strikingly relevant today, offering alternative perspectives on eternal questions. This creates additional intrigue and attraction to this text, which, despite its official exclusion, continues to exert a noticeable influence on various religious, philosophical, and cultural movements. One key aspect making the controversies about the Book of Enoch so lively is that it directly or indirectly raises fundamental questions about the very nature of revelation. If Enoch truly received divine messages that were later rejected by official structures, what does this say about our current understanding of God and how he interacts with humanity throughout history? It is these questions that cause concern and confusion for many, showing that even centuries after the Book of Enoch's exclusion from the canon, its ideas and teachings continued, and still continue, to significantly influence the development of theology and the understanding of spirituality as a whole. Thus, the debates surrounding the Book of Enoch underscore not only the text's importance as a potential source of ancient revelations, but also deeper questions concerning power, control, and the formation of religious structures. What were the political, cultural, and social circumstances that influenced the formation of the biblical canon in its current form? And what is the role of individual revelation in our collective knowledge of spirituality and the divine? The Book of Enoch remains a key element in this fascinating, complex, and multifaceted discussion, urging us to seek answers beyond the obvious. Archaeological finds, such as the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, continue to amaze researchers and the public, providing invaluable insights into hidden fragments of human history, religious beliefs, and culture. These scrolls, discovered under dramatic circumstances in 1947 in the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea, include texts that undeniably confirm the existence of the Book of Enoch in antiquity and its significant influence on early religious traditions in the region. Within these manuscripts, researchers find numerous fragments representing direct quotes and striking parallels with the text of the Book of Enoch, clearly indicating that this text was not merely an isolated mystical legend, but part of a living, evolving religious tradition that exerted considerable influence on surrounding peoples and their beliefs. It seems crucial to fully grasp that this discovery doesn't just confirm the existence of the Book of Enoch. It opens a unique window into a world where knowledge and spirituality were passed down through generations, shaping fundamental understandings of the divine and how humans should relate to higher powers and cosmic laws. In the context of ancient Judaism, Enoch, as I see it, was regarded as a particularly righteous man who was worthy of accessing heavenly secrets and becoming their direct witness and keeper. The presence of his apocryphal texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls undoubtedly added depth to our understanding of how ancient Jews perceived the world around them and their role in it, especially during anxious times awaiting the end of the world or divine intervention. I find it significant that the Book of Enoch was quite popular in the 1st century CE, confirmed by the presence of numerous fragments among other important texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls. For instance, these scrolls contain many references to celestial phenomena, the story of the fallen angels, and subsequent divine punishment, resonating powerfully with teachings that continued to circulate and influence minds at that time. This wasn't just academic interest. For many, it was a serious source of spiritual teachings concerning judgment, sin, and the hope for salvation. Moreover, the recovered texts offer scholars a unique opportunity to analyze how knowledge was transmitted in antiquity and how it shaped the worldview of entire communities. Every mention of celestial beings, their interaction with humanity, and their subsequent punishment raises profound questions about morality, spirit, and the meaning of existence, which were relevant then and remain relevant now. These ideals perhaps not only served as a basis for personal righteousness, but also created conditions for the formation of new cults and teachings, which in turn influenced future religious systems and philosophies. Textual variations and numerous fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls clearly show that the Book of Enoch carried elements that could significantly influence subsequent sacred texts and teachings. I find the focused mention of certain divine secrets and how they resonated with other religious traditions of the time particularly significant, suggesting complex and interconnected truths left to us by preceding generations. By transmitting these profound teachings, the Book of Enoch becomes not just a collection of tales passed down through centuries, but part of a continuous spiritual tradition. It's hard for me to ignore these amazing discoveries. They convincingly support the idea that not only the writing itself, but also the content it represents, constitutes an important part of our shared spiritual history. With each new discovery and deciphered fragment, it becomes increasingly clear that ancient traditions and texts like the Book of Enoch had a much more significant impact on the development of human culture and religious thought than we typically assume. The Book of Enoch thus becomes not merely an artifact, but a key to a different, deeper understanding of our connection to the heavenly and the spiritual. One cannot fail to notice the numerous striking parallels within the Book of Enoch to other sacred texts recognized as canonical, both in Judaism and Christianity. These clear intersections and thematic overlaps only emphasize its significance and the influence it likely had on shaping key theological concepts across different religions. The obvious analogies between Enoch's narrative and canonical texts create fertile ground for in-depth research and, it seems to me, open new horizons for understanding divine revelations and eternal truths. For example, many scholars and theologians point to clear parallels between the Book of Enoch and texts within the Old Testament. One of the most notable references concerns the Watchers, angels who descended to earth and violated God's commandments by entering into relations with human women. This theme, though brief, is present in the Old Testament, for instance, in Genesis, chapter 6, and in a more expanded form in prophecies like Isaiah and Ezekiel, where the emphasis is on their high status and eventual fall due to disobedience. These texts serve as grim reminders of the inevitability of divine judgment and the catastrophic consequences of violating the celestial order and hierarchy. The Book of Enoch also includes detailed descriptions of the giants, the Nephilim, born from the Watchers and human women. This concept, as I've mentioned, echoes the brief, almost enigmatic mentions in the Bible. However, Enoch deepens it, providing a detailed portrayal of their role in early human history and their destructive impact. Interestingly, this theme appears not only in Judaic texts, it finds echoes in Christian scriptures as well. The apostles Peter and Jude, in their epistles, mention angels who sinned and were cast down, which many interpreters connect to Enoch's Watchers. This underscores the importance of adhering to God's commandments to protect against similar spiritual calamities that can arise from unholy interactions between spiritual forces and humans. Furthermore, the New Testament clearly shows the influence of the Book of Enoch on teachings about the Last Judgment, the end times, and apocalyptic events, which is also highlighted in the Revelation of John. These texts display a powerful apocalyptic vision touching upon themes of divine justice and righteous punishment for sins, directly correlating with what Enoch describes in his prophecies. The idea that judgment hangs over humanity preceding epochal changes in the cosmos finds direct confirmation, creating a strong link between Enoch's revelations and the assumptions and expectations that paved the way for the formation of Christian eschatology, the doctrine of the end times. It's also interesting to note the influence of the Book of Enoch on Gnostic movements, where it was sometimes understood as a source of special, esoteric, or even forbidden knowledge. Interpreted through a Gnostic lens, the book and its characters, like the Watchers, were used as symbols illustrating the fruitful yet perilous interaction between knowledge and ignorance, between the spiritual and the material, creating a kind of battleground for the spiritual struggle within the human soul. This lends the ancient story of fallen angels a completely new dimension, where human choices and attitudes towards knowledge become defining factors for their spiritual outcome. As can be seen, the Book of Enoch doesn't merely reflect existing Jewish and Christian traditions. It actively influences the understanding of divine revelations, providing profound analogies and introducing unique elements that continue to intrigue researchers and believers today. Analyzing these texts deepens our knowledge of the complex interrelationships between different faiths and adds significance to the traditions that have shaped the global foundations of spiritual understanding for centuries. In each of these intersections, new meanings and contexts emerge, continuing to influence the modern perception of sacred scriptures and our shared spiritual heritage, prompting further investigation. I've always been particularly interested in finding out, are there tangible traces of the secret knowledge spoken of so extensively in the Book of Enoch in our modern history and culture? Historians, cultural experts, and sociologists suggest that some of this knowledge might not have been merely hidden from the majority, but actively used and preserved within secret societies and organizations that, they claim, carefully guarded ancient teachings. These groups, operating away from public attention, could potentially be the true custodians of knowledge that some believe influences the course of history and individual destinies, guiding their development, or conversely, leading them astray. Researchers emphasize that over the centuries, various occult movements and societies, such as Freemasons, Rosicrucians, or other esoteric orders, may have preserved educational materials and practices containing elements of alchemy, astrology, and magic, as described in the Book of Enoch. The influence of these ancient teachings might be reflected in the rituals, symbolism, and practices of such groups, which assert the necessity of understanding and controlling the unseen forces of nature and the universe. Another aspect is that these secret societies might possess knowledge concerning the deepest questions of morality and justice, or even relate to concepts of ancient gods and spirits who, according to ancient teachings, once sent important messages to humans and intervened in their affairs. In this context, one might assume that those seeking the depths of human nature, the meaning of life, and a connection with higher powers find reflections of their quests in the teachings of these groups, delving into the mysteries mentioned in the Book of Enoch and striving to unravel them. Some researchers even view new religious movements and cults emerging in the modern world as possible successors to ancient knowledge once transmitted orally, recorded in sacred texts, and later forgotten or rejected by official tradition. All this creates a context in which ancient teachings can remain relevant and address contemporary searches for meaning and knowledge. On the other hand, a serious question arises. Can this knowledge be used for the benefit of all humanity? Or, as the Book of Enoch sternly warns, could it lead to catastrophic consequences if it falls into the wrong hands? Some scholars even argue that specific historical events, like major scientific discoveries or significant cultural movements, might have been inspired by this forbidden knowledge leaked from secret sources. For example, complex devices and technologies that emerged in recent centuries might not just be the result of ordinary scientific progress, but a reflection of hidden knowledge accessible only to those capable of understanding and applying it. Modern breakthroughs in biotechnology or artificial intelligence, regardless of their progress, might also, in essence, reflect these ancient teachings about manipulating matter, life, and mind. This discussion leads us to another important thought. If such knowledge truly exists in modern society, what will be its impact on the spirituality and morality of individuals and humanity as a whole? Unveiling such powerful knowledge could be either the greatest blessing, leading to enlightenment and development, or a terrible curse, capable of destroying all life. Uncontrolled and irresponsible use of these ancient truths could lead to destruction on an unimaginable scale before humanity even realizes the full extent of the responsibility it bears. The secret knowledge mentioned in the Book of Enoch becomes not just an ancient scientific or religious interest, but a strikingly relevant topic for reflection. The question of where this knowledge might be found and how it might be used, for good or ill, extends far beyond mere curiosity. It could open new horizons in the study of ancient teachings and their ongoing influence on our perception of the world, past and future.